Hi, this is Nanette Hosenfeld with the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Monday, June 7th, 2021. We're looking at a pretty windy period coming up, as you can see from all of the orange on the map. We will see an extended period of widespread gusty winds with low relative humidity through Thursday. Wind gusts will generally be in the 35 to 45 mile an hour range, and some areas could even see gusts in excess of that 45 mile an hour speed. Later this week, we will see temperatures cool to normal and slightly below normal as a cold front moves through the area. Over the past 24 hours, there's been really no precipitation or lightning to speak of, other than a small amount of lightning and precipitation across eastern Utah. Fire activity has really begun to pick up across the Great Basin. We had a period of pretty widespread lightning, and that is being followed by a period of really dry and windy conditions. Looking at observed precipitation over the past week, the image on the left shows the observed precipitation, and it has been pretty spotty. We have seen some thunderstorms that have been accompanied by heavier rain, but that's been in pretty isolated locations. So overall, the Great Basin over the past 7 days is well below normal as far as precipitation. ERCs have continued to rise across the Great Basin, across the far southern part of the area. We are now looking at ERCs in that 90 to 96th percentile category, which is pretty exceptional for the beginning of June. Elsewhere, as you can see from those arrows pointing upwards, ERCs continue to rise with the hot and dry weather that we've seen. Looking at those ERC trends over time, GB33 in southwestern Utah has been in record territory for quite some time. GB18 in Idaho had a pretty sharp dip, but has recovered quickly. Satellite this morning shows mostly clear skies across the Great Basin. There's a weather disturbance across Southern California moving our way, sending some clouds into the far southern part of the Great Basin. Today we have an upper level trough moving into the Pacific Northwest that will slowly make its way through the Great Basin this week, and that is the weather system that will bring us really widespread wind. We have a high risk issued for much of the Great Basin today for wind. Quite a concern with widespread wind and dry conditions following a period of lightning. If we look at that in more detail, wind speeds are expected to be in that 35 to 45 mile an hour range. Pretty widespread gusty winds across the Great Basin today. Relative humidity is generally below 15% in those windy areas. So moving to Tuesday, that weather system ever so slowly shifts its way east. That will shift the wind threat further into Utah. You can see much of Utah is highlighted with high risk for wind tomorrow, as well as much of Nevada. If we look at that in more detail, again, you can see those gustier winds spreading into Utah. Strongest wind speeds are expected to be across western Utah, eastern Nevada, and far western Nevada. Moving into Wednesday, that low pressure system begins to make its way into the Great Basin. We will see temperatures start to cool across the western part of the Great Basin as a cold front associated with that begins to move into the area. Again, another day of widespread gusty winds expected on Wednesday ahead of that system. Looking at that in more detail, you can see some really strong winds across Nevada into western Utah as a cold front makes its way through the area. And in the areas with those gusty winds, looking at relative humidities generally below 15%. We've experienced a pretty long period of record high temperatures, and I thought it was interesting to look at how those temperatures change with that cold front moving through later this week. The image on the left is a temperature anomaly, so how forecast temperatures compare to normal. You can see today much of the Great Basin is expected to be above normal as far as temperatures. Some locations in the 15 to 20 degree above normal range. By the time we move into Wednesday, that's really changed across almost all of Nevada. Temperatures 15 to 20 degrees below normal across Nevada, but a sharp gradient moving into the eastern part of the Great Basin, into eastern Idaho and eastern Utah, where those temperatures are still expected to be above normal. Over the next 3 days, we're expecting to see some precipitation across the northern part of the Great Basin. So on Thursday, as that first system moves through the area, we're looking at a second weather system setting up behind it over the Pacific Ocean. We are expecting another period of gusty winds into eastern Utah and the Arizona Strip on Thursday. And as we move into Friday, again, with another weather system developing to our west, we'd expect to see an area of gusty winds on Friday. Looking at the potential for some precipitation Thursday and Friday with that cold front moving through. And as we move into Saturday, again, no high risk on the map yet because it's pretty far out in time, but with this weather pattern, we would expect to continue to see gusty winds across much of the area. And finally on Sunday, again, a pretty similar setup with dry air across much of the Great Basin, and we'd expect to see gusty winds again. Precipitation accumulation in the 7-day period doesn't look much different than the 3-day period, so really any precipitation we see over the next week will likely be associated with that cold front as it moves through. Finally, in the 8 to 14-day period, the Climate Prediction Center is calling for warmer and drier conditions across the entire area. So that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us. Our information is on the screen, and you can also find us on Twitter.